Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. I'm your host, Jim Chapman. And so, what led me to today's episode? Well, on the most recent episode of Crime Wire Weekly, KJ and we covered some of the most updated crime news stories, and one of those was the case of Alexee Trevizo. And on that show, we have one of the more interesting debates, if you will, on this particular case. And after it aired, I was flooded with messages from listeners of this podcast asking more about the case. So today, I'm going to give you all the facts as we know them right now. It's a tough story to listen to, but nonetheless, I'm going to deep dive into it today. So who is Alexee Trevizo and what did she do? Well, Alexee was a 19-year-old female. She was living in Artesia, New Mexico, and in January of 2023, she was allegedly involved in an incident where her newborn son, who was born in an ER hospital bathroom, was found deceased and wrapped in a trash can liner that was hidden in a trash can. Now, before I go any further, I need to say that this case is still making its way through the court system, believe it or not, since January of 2023, which is ridiculous. So what I'm covering today is everything we know that we have receipts for, right? Now, in the past few weeks, there has been some movement on this case, and I will, of course, cover all of that as well. So, as I said, Alexee was 19 years old. She was a high school student. Nothing has really come out as to why she was 19 years old and still a high school student. Now, people speculate that she just started school late because she was, from all reports, a good student. She was a cheerleader, which to participate in things like cheerleading or really any type of sport related to someone in high school, you have to maintain a certain GPA. And I bring that up because I want to hammer down the point that this girl was not, for lack of a better word, dumb in school. She performed very well academically, and reports say she was actually one of the favorites, if you will, amongst her teachers. Now, initially, when this story came out in 2023, it was improperly reported that she was born in Texas, which is incorrect. She was actually born and raised in Artesia, New Mexico, which the confusion, I think, came from her proximity to the state of Texas. It actually, the border to Texas is only 80 miles away from her hometown in Artesia. So I think there was some confusion there, and I believe she went to Texas after all of this came out, and it caused that confusion. But I want to shed light that she is a lifelong resident of Artesia, New Mexico, and that's important because these people in this town knew her very well. Now, she lived with her mother, Rosa, and her stepdad. She had 3 sisters and a brother, and it, rather large family by today's standards. That's 5 children for Mother Rosa and her stepdad. As I said, she was a cheerleader, and she wasn't only a cheerleader, she was captain of the squad. She was an athlete and in a long-term relationship with another athlete, a baseball player at the high school by the name of Devin Fierro. So if you followed this case, even just a little bit, you may have come across some pictures, some before and after stuff, and some pretty good internet sleuths. What they did was they came across some pictures where they knew the date or the month that these pictures were posted to social media. And they took some of these pics that were like 10 months prior to this incident, and they would post them, and it would show Alexee like in her cheerleading uniform. She looks fit, she looks in shape like most other cheerleaders you would come across. And then they posted some pictures from January of 2023 in her cheerleading uniform. And the pictures that I saw, y'all, she's in her cheer uniform and she's reaching up. She's like the base of a cheerleading pyramid. So she's the one holding up someone else. That's right. Prego. We know now she was definitely Prego, holding someone up. And it is crystal clear at that point that she is as Prego as you can get. I mean, there is no mistaking that for just some massive weight gain or something. It's a belly that you would expect from someone that's pregnant, not someone that's put on a lot of weight. Now, what is strange about this is that 0 people in her family have admitted to this day, even her own mother, that they knew she was pregnant, which, in my opinion, if I showed that same picture to 1,000 people, 1,000 out of 1,000 would say that girl right there is pregnant. They don't even need to see the before picture. But that's their story and they're sticking to it. So let's go to January 26th of 2023. And just prior to midnight, Alexee, along with her mother, they show up at the ER in Artesia because Alexee was complaining of what Alexee and her mother called abdominal and back pain. Now, all of us have been to the doctor. When you get there, you fill out forms, right? And when you're a female on this questionnaire, or if a nurse is talking to you before the doctor sees you, they're going to ask you specific female related questions that they don't ask males. They're going to ask you if, assuming you're the age of someone who can bear children, they're going to ask what your last cycle was, when your last period was. If you're sexually active, they're going to ask if there's any possibility that you could be pregnant. And they ask these questions for several reasons. One in particular being they don't want to prescribe you something or give you any drugs that may negatively affect a pregnancy if you are indeed pregnant. It's very important that you're honest with your medical provider on those things. So Alexee not only denies being pregnant, she goes as far to say she's having her regular periods still. Now, the doctor in this case that she dealt with, that doctor's name is Dr. Heather Vasquez, and she comes in and she reiterates this to Dr. Heather, and she describes to the doctor that she got home from cheerleading practice that day and she felt as though she needed to have a bowel movement. Now, the doctor did ask her again if she was pregnant, which this is a female doctor, y'all. And I would imagine females know females better than us males do, especially as it relates to the female body. Now, I'm just speculating here, but I would speculate that she took a look at Alexee and she probably thought, wow, this girl is pregnant. Now, full disclosure here, Alexee was wearing some very baggy clothes, and from all reports that have come out, she was definitely trying to hide this from a lot of people. I still can't wrap my mind around how she could hide this from her mother, but she was definitely trying to hide this from a lot of people because she would wear baggy clothes all the time as she grew, as her baby belly grew. But back to it, she asked Alexee a second time if she was pregnant, and Alexee said no, she wasn't pregnant, and reiterated that she was currently on her period. So at this point, it is 12:18 a.m. It had just turned January 27th, and the doctor orders a series of medications. One of those was called cyclobenzaprine, I believe is how you pronounce that. My nurses that listen to this show will probably correct me, but it's a muscle relaxer. Think Flexreal. It's basically, Flexreal is the non-generic version of that drug. And she also was prescribed acetaminophen, which is basically Tylenol. So nothing super major here as far as medications that would possibly be harmful if you were pregnant. So we're going to fast forward just about 10 minutes, 12:28 p.m. And I guess this doctor was still suspicious that Alexee was pregnant, and she orders and the nurse administers a pregnancy test. And this ain't no piss on the stick kind of pregnancy test. It's a blood test to determine if she was with child. So this is where it gets a little perplexing to me. Rather than wait for those results, which only take about 15-20 minutes, at the same time she gives this blood sample, meaning Alexee gives it to the doctor to determine if she's pregnant, Alexee is also given more medication. This time she gets sodium chloride, which all that is fluids for dehydration primarily. She also gets what's known as ketorolac. I think is the pronunciation for that. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, and she also gets, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the non-brand name version of this, but she also gets Zofran, which is a nausea and vomiting medicine. She's also given morphine, which that freaked me out at first. I'm like, wow, you give a pregnant girl morphine? But I found out after talking to several nurses, this is actually pretty common. As a matter of fact, it is super common when ladies are pregnant and they're having labor pains and they're in the hospital. They'll give them a little bit of morphine to take the edge off of that pain. So I thought that was crazy originally, but according to several labor and delivery nurses that I've talked to, this is not necessarily atypical. So at 12:51, that blood test does come back and it's positive for Alexee being pregnant. Now, the time that I just gave you was the time this information was sent to the computer at the hospital for the nurses and the doctor to see. It doesn't necessarily mean anybody saw it at that time. Basically, they were just emailed back that here's the results. So at 1:39 a.m., Alexee has to go to the bathroom. She says she has to have a bowel movement really bad, and so the nurse removes her IV. Alexee gets up, and she heads to that bathroom, which it's important to mention. They don't have bathrooms inside of like a private ER room, right? There's a common area. There's a hallway, if you will, long hallway, and it's got a bathroom in the center of it, and everybody uses the same bathroom. So Alexee heads that way, and she's by herself. And I bring that up because I have talked to several registered nurses who have told me it is not standard procedure in this situation to let someone just go to the bathroom by themselves when they have been administered morphine, which it's a major painkiller, right? Anything can happen on the way to the bathroom. You could pass out, you could run into a wall, you could just fall on the ground, and the hospital is legally responsible if that were to happen. So you're accompanied, or you should have been accompanied everywhere you go, like the bathroom, if not put in a wheelchair and wheeled to the bathroom. And then they help you out of that. You actually go to the bathroom, and they don't go in the stall with you, but they'll stand by the stall. And when you're done doing your business, they'll help you back into that wheelchair and wheel you back into the room. And all of that is important. Why did I spend some time on that? Because had that happened in this situation, everything that I'm about to tell you about likely would not have happened. Now, I'm not throwing any shade. I want to say that up front on the hospital or the hospital staff per se. I mean, it's 2:00 in the morning. These people are human too. They probably weren't necessarily on their A game that night, some of them, as they normally would be. But whatever the circumstance, at least all the nurses I've talked to and all the hospitals that I'm familiar with, the procedure is when you give someone morphine, they don't go to the bathroom unaccompanied like that. And I want everybody to understand, I'm not assigning any blame whatsoever on these people, but it's important to point that out. So what we do have the benefit of here in this case that you don't have in a lot of cases is that Alexee is in a hospital, and those hospitals have a lot of cameras. I mean, a lot of cameras. And you can literally see her movements from the time that she leaves her room after that IV is removed. You can see her going all the way down the hallway, entering that bathroom. And incidentally, all that's available on YouTube if you want to go check it out. But I'm going to give you a timeline here of what occurred because it's like 2.5 hours, this video. So I'm going to give you the timestamps that are important to what we're talking about specifically right now. So the first surveillance camera footage that we see Alexee start down that hallway. That's at 1:39 p.m. The surveillance is just one single shot pointed toward the restroom hallway, which incidentally, that restroom has a pull cord and a call button inside of it, which I found very important in forming my opinion on this case. I want to mention that. So at 1:39, we see Alexee from behind, and she's running toward that bathroom. Now she's wearing baggy gray sweatpants, and she's wearing a baggy shirt, and it's a view from her rear. And you can see from behind, she's got her left hand and it's kind of holding or covering the back of her butt as if she's holding something on her butt. Or I hate to say it this way, but if you got to go to the bathroom really bad, you'll put your hand back there maybe. That's what it looks like she's doing. And she's at a quick pace running to that bathroom. So 44 seconds after she goes into the bathroom, Mother Rosa appears on that camera, that surveillance cam. She goes up to the door and it looks like she might be checking on her daughter, and then she walks away. And then 9 minutes and 19 seconds pass, and Rosa goes back to that bathroom door, and it appears she's checking on her a second time. She just kind of stands outside of the door, and there's no audio, y'all, unfortunately. So if something was said like, "What are you doing, Alexee? What are you doing in there? You've been in there 10 minutes. Do you need help?" Anything like that. We don't know that, but it doesn't look like she's actually screaming into the door at that time. So another 3 minutes and 15 seconds later, a staff member walks up to the bathroom, and the staff member just stands by the door. Again, no audio, so we don't know what's being said, but I don't see this staff member speaking into the door. You can just see that staff member standing by the door. Another minute and 4 seconds later, Dr. Heather, she goes to that bathroom door, and we can see her lips moving, and she's speaking with some staff that is gathered outside of that bathroom door. So they wait outside that door about another 46 seconds, and the staff starts moving closer to the door, and I'm going off of really body language here, but it appears like they're getting more and more concerned. They're kind of leaning into the door as if they're listening to something. I don't know. The audio would have been great here, but we don't have that. Then 1 minute and 42 seconds later, the doctor walks toward the bathroom door, starts speaking to the staff that's waiting outside, and then 38 seconds after that, all the staff members walk away from the bathroom door. Now, 27 seconds later, a staff member arrives at that bathroom door again with keys. So right at this point, you're thinking, okay, this staff member is about to forcibly unlock that bathroom and get in there. But guess what? They don't have to, because at that exact time, Alexee opens the door and walks out. So Alexee walks out of the bathroom. It's 1:57 a.m. And so when we do the math on that, that's 18 minutes that she was in that bathroom. Now we know, based off of staff reports and staff interviews, that what these folks heard at that bathroom door was the bathroom sink running nonstop. They also heard constant flushing of the toilet, like repetitive flushing of that toilet. They also said the electric paper towel dispenser that was hanging on the wall was going constantly. And these are motion activated at this place. And I don't know if you've ever used these. I freaking hate those motion activated paper towel dispensers, because I wave and it seems like it takes 20 seconds for it to start moving, and it comes out like one piece of towel at a time. So you've got to get like 15 waves in there just to get enough of an amount to dry off your hands. Well, this thing was running like as if someone was standing in front of it, just waving the whole time, according to staff. I can't imagine how she was able to do that, but this is what they say happened. So when Alexee walks out of the bathroom right before, remember, they were going to unlock the door, one thing you notice is there is blood on the floor. You can actually see bloody footprints in that video. She had a paper towel in her hand, and it looked like she was drying off the excess water from her hands. And then she just casually tosses the paper towel in a trash can and goes back to her room in that ER. So as she's heading back to that room to go in there, within the next minute or so, several medical staff, you see them on the surveillance footage walking toward the bathroom. They go inside the bathroom because they notice those bloody footprints outside of the bathroom door. And they go in there and they make a pretty horrific discovery. There is blood everywhere in that bathroom. So at 2:08 a.m., a janitorial employee for that hospital shows up at the bathroom, and they're tasked with going in there and cleaning the bathroom. And I'm guessing at this point that what the staff is thinking is something's horrible happened with this girl, but nobody's thinking she just delivered a baby in there. But I'm going to play a clip of what that housekeeping staff member who went inside that hospital saw from her own words.
I was called and to go clean the patient's bathroom in ER around, maybe 2 o'clock or so, I think it was the time, I'm not too sure. So when I went in there, it was a gory, bloody massacre mess.
Could you describe it if possible?
Yeah, there was blood everywhere. There was blood on the floor, on the wall.
Do you remember which wall?
The one behind the toilet, and then the one on the side right here. You know, there's the one where the toilet sits, back of that.
Yeah.
And then on the side.
Where the call button is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the floor, everywhere. When I went to go through the trash, I felt that when I picked up the trash and I looked in it, there was trash in it, but I knew that it didn't feel like when I picked it up, it was some weight. So I thought it was the trash bags, because we put the trash bags on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And so I started getting the trash out, and then when I did that, I seen that there was a baby in there. And that's when I freaked out, and I called Lori and HT, or the nurses up front, and because there was a baby in the trash. And the baby, when I looked at it, the baby was wrapped up like in like at the bottom of the trash can, and with trash on top of it, in a trash bag. And
so how did you see it, like as soon as you picked it up?
No, after I picked up the trash bag that was on top,
okay,
where they were throwing the trash at, when I picked that up to change it, that's when I noticed that there was, when I seen the baby.
You describe the baby?
Yeah, he was about like that big. He had hair, and he was like purplish, but still not like pink. I don't know how to describe it. He wasn't bruised or nothing like that, and he was like purple, pink skin type color.
And incidentally, y'all, she was in there almost 20 minutes cleaning this bathroom before she makes that horrific discovery of that baby. So a nurse also has described what she saw, and these clips that I'm going to play you are clips with detectives after the incident, but a nurse also describes what she saw when she went in the bathroom.
And then when I picked it up, that's when I noticed it even more, because all I saw was black and purple, but once we picked it up, like the bag suctioned to his face. And that's when I yelled for my charge nurse, which was HT, and I told him, hey, she put her baby in the trash can. So I handed the baby to him, and he took off to the trauma room and opened up the bag, and then that's when we went and got Dr. Vasquez.
And you heard that nurse mention a charge nurse. So she calls this charge nurse, and he goes in the bathroom, and this is what he said he saw.
I go in the bathroom, and she goes, something's in the trash can. I'm like, I looked in there, there's a clean liner. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, pick it up. I picked it, I could feel the weight. I knew then we had a serious problem. I just grabbed the trash can and went right across the hall into trauma 2. The liner was pulled out, but there was another trash bag in there in the bottom, but it was all it was rolled up. So I had to tear it apart. And then, of course, I saw the baby in there. So I pulled the baby out, got him on the bed, checked for signs of life. There was absolutely no life whatsoever. I immediately came out of there after I did that, went into the room where she was performing the vaginal exam, and I immediately told her, you have to come out now. And she came out, and we went into trauma 2, and she reassessed the baby. At that time, between me and Chris and her, we determined, there was no reason for us to begin any life saving. The baby was completely gone.
And there was even a third nurse that gave his perspective of what he saw when he saw the baby.
And could you tell if the baby was alive or
They did not look alive.
It didn't look alive.
It looked. But also, I think the time had passed since she left the bathroom and it being in the bag. It was just.
How long do you think that was?
Maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. I just said, yes, I don't know. We brought the baby up. We called the doctor, obviously, out of the room from her exam. And we came in, kind of, doc assessed the baby and, basically determined it was not viable to completely work the baby and all of that.
So obviously, y'all, these are interviews with detectives, as I said, and it was after all of this was found, obviously. But by now, they find this baby that was determined to be a boy wrapped in a garbage bag. That garbage bag tightly sealed and knotted and placed at the bottom of the garbage can, and then another trash liner placed on top of it. A lot of effort to hide what had just happened. So at this point, upon discovering this baby, they tell the doctor, all these nurses that went in there. And of course, they call police. They don't make Alexee aware of this, however, because you don't want her to try to run off, or you don't want her to start trying to get her story straight or do anything to screw up an investigation before the cops get there. Well, police, they do arrive at the hospital. And I want you to remember this, what I'm about to say right now, because later on in the story, it becomes one of the biggest keys to this case thus far. So police arrive at the hospital. They have on body cams, right? They go with the doctor into the room. And as soon as the doctor walks into that room, he breaks the news to Alexee that, hey, we know that you stuffed a baby in a trash can, or we found a baby in a trash can in the bathroom you were just in. I'm going to play the actual clip of that for you.
I'm sorry, there's we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. He came out at me and I didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this.
Oop, wait a second. I'm going to stop that clip right here for just a second. Police walk in and the doctor says to Alexee that they found the baby in the trash can and now that they have to involve police. And the first thing her mom says without hesitation is, Alexee, we talked about this. Now, that is a statement that bothers me for two reasons. One, a mother just hears this story for the very first time, that your grandchild was born in the bathroom and that grandchild is now dead. And Alexee makes a comment, and incidentally, she described the baby as it. She said, it just came out of me and I didn't know what to do. And before she could even get another sentence out of her mouth, her mother cuts her off and says, Alexee, we talked about this. I mean, WTF does that mean? The mother didn't even seem surprised that all this just occurred. It's just speculation on my part, obviously, based off of what the body cam footage is showing. But I mean, she didn't even pause to allow herself a second of thought to take that in. And that bothered me. But let's continue with the clip.
I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
It was not crying or nothing.
What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her out there as soon as possible.
Okay.
I need your permission to transfer her for medicals. She needs to
She's
be
19.
Oh, you're right.
But she is a student too.
She's still 19 years
you're
old.
right. You're right. She needs to. I'm sorry, I forgot she's 19.
Keep having me.
You need to make sure that you're safe. I need to send you to Loveless to labor delivery. Will you please agree to that?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to work on that.
So at this point, you heard they transfer Alexee to another hospital because they were concerned maybe Alexee didn't deliver the placenta, and if that stays in there, you can go septic and you can die. So they actually have her airlifted out of that hospital to another hospital that is more, I guess you could call it baby delivery friendly, to make sure that she obviously doesn't die as well, which is the right thing to do. Now, a lot of things bother me in this case that we've already learned. And look, that pull cord and that emergency button that were in that bathroom, That is a big deal to me. When she's in the bathroom, she's having this baby, that pull cord, all you have to do is yank it, and everybody in that hospital is running toward that bathroom to help you, as well as that call button. So when I hear people say she's panicked because she didn't know what to do, I just don't see it that way, because when you don't know what to do, you pull the freaking pull cord and someone comes that does know what to do. I struggle to understand or make sense out of this, because people are saying she was scared of her mother. She didn't want her mother to know that she was going to have this baby. Y'all, she was not 11 years old. This was an adult. She was a 19-year-old adult, fully functional, making good grades. She wasn't slow in school or anything like that. Now, granted, 19-year-olds, no matter typically how smart they are morons, right? They just haven't lived a whole lot of life in a lot of ways, but they know not to kill a baby. Even if that baby was stillborn, which this one was not. I want to make that clear, and we'll get into that. But even if the baby was stillborn, or she thought the baby was stillborn, she still knew to call for help. You don't try to hide it afterward. I'm sorry, that dog don't hunt for me. So she gets airlifted to the other hospital, and they get her healthy again. Now, Alexee at this time was not arrested. Police, they just don't know yet. They're awaiting an autopsy. It could have been that the baby was stillborn and the girl panicked. Regardless of that, you still can't hide a baby in a trash can like that, but there's a big jump from having a stillborn baby to murdering a baby, right? So the police are just trying to get all the information at this point in time and have a good investigation. Now, 2 days later, her mother, Rosa, shows up at the police department, and she's wanting to know how she can get the remains of this baby. And she refers to the baby as him, and she wants to know when she's going to get him back. And to me, and incidentally, I'm not going to play the clip that they have, but there's body cam footage of this interaction, if you will, with police on YouTube. But she gets very dismissive when police are talking to her. And what stands out to me more than anything else in this interaction is the officer asked her if she has considered getting Alexee any counseling. And she quickly says no. And she follows that up almost as quickly with, but are you aware there's been a HIPAA violation? I mean, she just blows right through this offer of counseling from police and goes straight into accusing the hospital and the police department of violating HIPAA law, basically saying everyone in town is talking about this situation and talking about her daughter because they violated HIPAA and it got out and teachers are calling her, etc. And that was all really off-putting to me. Your concern is not in the right place, in my view. So the next major movement on this case occurs March 28th of 2023 when the autopsy comes out regarding this baby. And this is about 2 months after the incident. Now, the autopsy shows the baby Alex, which they named the baby Alex. It showed that baby Alex's cause of death was entrapment, which means that him being entrapped in that plastic bag is determined to be what caused his death. His manner of death was ruled a homicide. Now, the autopsy showed that he had air in both his lungs and his stomach, which indicates that he did take at least one breath. Could have been 4 or 5 breaths, but at least one breath after being born, and that he was at a 38-week age baby with no abnormalities, which means that there were no major health conditions when this baby was born. He was, in fact, what you would consider a healthy 38-week-old gestational age baby that was born, and in fact took a breath, at least one, could have been many more, before being placed in that plastic bag. And that plastic bag is indeed what caused this baby to die. And why is that so important? Well, it proves the baby was not stillborn. It proves the baby was alive before the baby was placed in that plastic bag. In the condition, health-wise, the baby was healthy, which makes it extremely unlikely, almost out of the realm of any real commonsensical argument, that this baby health-wise was in a condition where it would only take one breath and die. To me, it proves that Alexee's decision to put that baby in a plastic bag and tie that bag up killed the baby, regardless of whether the baby was crying, regardless of what she thought. That baby, in reality, was alive. There's no debate on that now. So police get this, and obviously they're still investigating this case, and this autopsy sheds a brand new light on everything, and they're gathering information. Now, April 22nd, a little over a month later, Alexee goes to prom. Now, I haven't talked to you about the guy involved in this case too much, but the guy that was determined to be the father of the baby is indeed that long-term boyfriend, baseball player, Devin Fierro. And that was proved by DNA. I did want to mention that. So she ended up going to prom with Devin. And a lot of people question that. I think that Devin and his family believed all the shit that Alexee was telling them at the time, and they just believed that this baby was stillborn. Some people had a problem with his family allowing him to go, considering the circumstances. But if they were buying everything she was saying, I mean, they probably felt horrible for her, and he as well. So there's that. So moving on, police are investigating, and toward the end of April of 2023, they go back and they interview several of these nurses. And specifically, the particular aspect of the interviews was focused around if these nurses thought Alexee was trying to hide the pregnancy from her mother or anybody else. Obviously, she was trying to hide the baby, but you know, they also wanted to get thoughts on her demeanor, etc., and if she was trying to hide all of this. And here's a quick clip of what those nurses had to say.
It seemed like we were being just deceived from the beginning, but that's just my take on it. It seemed like she was very manipulative with us, and it was at least what it seemed like to me. She didn't want you to discover, you know, that she was pregnant, and she wore really baggy clothing. And she wouldn't sit still for you. I'm sure she was very uncomfortable too, but yeah, she wouldn't allow you to do it.
It seemed like she'd been trying to hide this pregnancy from her mother for some time. Mm-hmm. So if you know you're pregnant, you're not going to continue taking birth control pills. But if you're trying to hide it, you might start taking weight loss medications. That's just kind of what it seemed like in my head.
Other staff described the lengths Trevizo allegedly went to keep her pregnancy and birth a secret.
The umbilical cord looked like an animal had tore it apart. Like, you know, have you ever eaten string cheese? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, when you twist it, that's how the bottom of the umbilical cord looked. And I just remember it caught my eye, and I was like, God. I was like, this chick really ripped this thing apart.
Now, several nurses also discussed during this series of interviews that they had discussions with Alexee regarding the baby that night after all this occurred. And here's what they had to say about those discussions.
And then I went in there to talk to the patient and asked her why was the baby in the trash can.
And what did she say?
She said that it just came out of her and she didn't know what to do.
And I said, did your baby take at least one breath when it first happened? Or did it take at least one breath, or was it not breathing? And then she kind of looked at me in the face and the eyes, and she was like, well, can I tell you? And I said, tell me what? And she said, so I've been having this bad abdominal pain, she said, and we came here to the ER, and when they brought me back here to this room, I felt like I needed to go poop. She said, and I asked if I could go to the bathroom. She said, and so when they said, yeah, that I could go to the bathroom, she said, when I sat on the toilet, she said it just all fell out. And she said, but when I had it in my arms, it wasn't breathing, it wasn't moving. And so
of course, you want to be very, very judgmental at that time, and you have to bite your tongue sometimes, but, you know, my first reaction was like, I wanted to say, hey, well, then why wouldn't you call us for help? But I didn't. She said, so I just, he wasn't moving, he wasn't breathing. So I just placed him in there.
They also talked more about her demeanor upon, y'all, what must have been, had to have been the most traumatic thing thus far that had happened in her life. Hopefully the most traumatic thing ever in her life, although with the trouble she's in now, I don't know if that's going to be accurate. But her demeanor afterward, it's important. And they said they were shocked at how her concern appeared to be more about getting into trouble with her mother than about the death of this baby. Listen to this clip.
Did they have any comments?
Not one.
Really?
I was really surprised. Not one person asked me about the baby. If it was alive, if it was dead, if it was a boy, if it was a girl. No one asked me anything. She didn't even ask. No, she didn't ask. The only thing she started doing was crying and started talking about she didn't know what to do. Not one. I've never seen I've delivered multiple babies and I've seen multiple miscarriages and I've never seen a reaction like that. And I don't even know what to say about that. I've never seen anything like it.
How would you describe the reaction?
I think there was no emotion except for herself, and she really wasn't even crying tears. She was just, and the only thing she was upset about was that I think she was going to be in trouble with her mother.
She didn't say anything about what had happened. She was just essentially worried that she was just going to get in trouble.
So that's what I mean. Were those the questions she was asking?
Like so, what's going to happen to me? Like that kind of thing.
Did she ever ask about the baby?
No.
Not once.
She essentially was scared. She was worried that she was going to get in trouble. She did have the back and forth with her mother that was just about like, they had said, oh, the mom was upset because she had had sex and hadn't told her. So they were going back and forth on that, and then she was just denying it, which was a little wasn't really deniable at that point in time.
Right.
So the patient was denying having sex at this point to her mom?
Yeah, she was trying to state that she was still a virgin.
After she came in from the bathroom.
She definitely knew what she was doing and what was doing was wrong because of the way she was talking to me, just stating, I didn't realize I was pregnant and, but I'm taking the birth control, so, she was panicked, but, I didn't see her being in a state of mind where she did not know what she was doing.
Now, horrific event that these nurses had to deal with, right? And y'all, that would take a toll on anyone. And I think people forget sometimes the things that nurses have to see. They're true heroes. And I thought it was kind of important to play this clip of what these nurses have had to deal with having this kind of image stuck in their heads now. Listen to this.
When there's like one or two things in the wastebasket, I usually pick it up and take it out, but I didn't that night. And then, I've been kicking myself on this because I feel like, if I would have just taken it out, I would have seen it.
Well, no one prepares for that type of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Most people don't act like that. So don't blame yourself for it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a natural thing to do. Well,
it's just hard because I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I've dealt with death before, but never like this.
Right.
It was horrible.
I'm just going to tell you this. I've never, ever seen a reaction like that girl. I don't even know what to say about it. There was zero emotion. I don't even know what to say. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen women that are only married, or not married, but pregnant for 6 weeks and they lose that baby and they're a mess. You know what I mean? That girl went in that bathroom, made no sounds at all, and the baby came out of her. And I don't even know how she functioned that way to do what she did and with no emotion. I've never seen anything like it.
And it was a pretty good sized baby. Pretty good size.
It looked term to me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it was term. I can't tell you that was, but the only thing that upsets me the most is I understand she was scared, and I think her mother had a big dynamic on her, and I understand that. I mean, I think her mother was probably pretty controlling. I don't know that. I'm just speculation. But she gave me no chance to save that baby. I had no chance, and that's not what I do. My job is to save lives, and I had no chance on that baby. She gave me no chance. And we are a facility that you can drop the baby off, no questions asked. You can just leave the baby and go. I don't care. You know.
I just could not imagine having to deal with that. So May 10th, police, they finally get what they've been looking for this whole time. And that is enough evidence to get a probable cause warrant signed by a judge for the arrest of Alexee Trevizo. So they walk up to the door, they knock on the door. Mom, Rosa, comes to the door, and you know she's going to put up a fight, right?
What is she under arrest for? No, I'm not bringing her out here yet. Let me know what she's under arrest for.
She's going to get arrested regardless, ma'am. I mean, that's out of the way.
For what? For what? For what?
Are you okay with telling me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell me.
Homicide. Open count of homicide. And tampering with evidence.
Tampering with evidence?
Yes.
At the hospital?
So I know it's kind of hard to hear. Apparently it was windy that day. You can hardly hear what they're saying back and forth, and it wasn't that much, so I'm going to read the transcript of that quickly. Mother Rosa says, quote, "I'll bring her out. Just tell me what's going on." Law enforcement says there's a warrant for her arrest. Mother says, for what? Law enforcement says, I will give it to her. Mother says, can I see the warrant? And then the detective says, homicide, an open count of homicide and tampering with evidence. And Mother Rosa says, tampering with evidence at the hospital? And what a bizarre exchange that was. You get told your daughter is getting arrested for homicide, murder of her own child, and then tampering with evidence is a secondary charge. And her mother, Rosa's response was, tampering with evidence at the hospital? I mean, you don't worry about the murder charge? You just skim right over the murder charge and go to tampering with evidence? I just found that strange. Crazy to me. So eventually Rosa gets Alexee to come to the door, and Alexee does get arrested. It took like 18 minutes because her mom is being so uncooperative, but eventually Rosa is arrested and it's off to jail. Now, during this time, the family had retained an attorney, and his name is Gary Mitchell. And Gary Mitchell is a really good defense attorney who has defended some real pieces of shit. He was the defense attorney in the baby Brianna case. I don't know if you remember that case, but it was a case where there were several suspects who raped and murdered, or were accused of raping and murdering an infant. He was the attorney on that. He was also one of the defense attorneys in the Hollywood video murder case, in which 5 people were shot to death by Shane Harrison and Esther Beckley. And so he defends some really big time pieces of shit. Whatever. Everybody's entitled to a defense. I get it. But I mean, come on. Alexee spends 2 days in jail prior to getting out on bail. And today, as of this recording, we're nearly 3 years since all of this occurred, and it still has not gone to trial. Now, there has been some movement on this case recently. As a matter of fact, within a week and a half of me covering this, recording this. Remember when I told y'all at the beginning of this one that the police had their body cams on and they went into the room where Alexee was talking to the doctor? The doctor made her aware of finding the baby in the trash, and she blurted out, "I thought it was dead and I didn't know what to do." Well, the Supreme Court has ruled that that footage cannot be used in the trial of Alexee Trevizo. And the reason is HIPAA law. The conversation between doctor and patient that took place there can't be used because those conversations are confidential. Now, that being said, it's great evidence to have because you have her on camera and she's admitting not necessarily to murdering this baby, but certainly admitting she was the one who placed the baby in the trash can. You have her on camera admitting that. and now you can't use it. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be something that they had to have. I think they have more than enough evidence outside of that video to prove what occurred. You can prove a lot of things and win a circumstantial case. There's no doubt about it. This one, to me, is open and shut that she's the one who did the things that she's accused of doing. The question is, are they aiming too high? And I'll get to that. Now, incidentally, there is a lawsuit where the hospital is getting sued on behalf of this dead baby, where the family of Alexee Trevizo, they're claiming that the hospital gave her medications and mixtures that she shouldn't have gotten, even though they knew that she was pregnant. Now, of course, I've already told you that she lied about the fact she was pregnant, but the hospital did, in all fairness, they did do a pregnancy test that did come back positive. And according to this lawsuit, even when they got that email back to them, again, I'm going to say that doesn't mean they saw it at that time, but at the time it got emailed back, they didn't stop administering medicine at that point. And that's a problem. And I'll tell you why it's a problem twofold. It's a problem because they certainly should have seen it at that time, but it's also a problem because don't be surprised if in this defense, the fact that she was given morphine, she can claim she didn't know what she was doing when she put the baby in that trash can, and a lot of people are going to buy that. But we'll move on. I'll talk about that in a second. So initially, I was going to read you that lawsuit, but I don't think it's important to read it to you. I think you already get the gist of it. There you have it. That's what they're suing for. And now I'm going to give you the gist of where a lot of the discourse in this case is coming from, and where I honestly am still struggling, because I think this part is going to be an uphill battle for the prosecution in this case. And that is with the charge, specifically the main charge that they've charged Alexee Trevizo with, and that is first-degree murder of this baby. Now, in order to have first-degree murder, you have to prove specific intent. So you have to prove, in this instance, in my mind, that she, beyond a reasonable doubt, not 100%, beyond a reasonable doubt, that when she stuck that baby in the garbage can, she knew the baby was alive. And honestly, personal belief aside, I may personally believe she knew that. If I'm looking at the evidence that has been gathered that I've seen, I'm not so sure that that can be proven in court. And I don't know what the law is in New Mexico relative to where I'm at in some other states in the country. Maybe if you're from New Mexico, maybe you can shoot for first-degree murder and a jury can find someone not guilty of first-degree murder but find them guilty of second-degree murder. There's some states that do that, and there's some states that you're only up for the charge you're up for, and you're either found guilty or not guilty. If you're from that area and you know what the law is there, let me know. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I will tell you the medication, specifically that painkiller, is going to play a major role because that can affect your judgment. She had that medicine. There's no debate on that. As a matter of fact, there's a paperwork trail of it. And at the end of the day, she could just say she didn't know what she was doing. Just food for thought. Not sure what's going to happen there. What I'm also going to tell you is I've yet to come across anything as far as where they have set a date for this actual trial. And that is ridiculous, infuriating to me. This is 3 years later and they don't even have a date. And it's because these appeals can stretch out forever. Hopefully we'll get that soon. Of course, I'll let you know when that happens. But there you have it. As always, check out the Patreon if you'd like to help support the show. I could not do this without the support of those people. Just too expensive and too much time invested in researching these episodes to do it without these folks. I love them so much. They make this show run. You know who you are. Please consider supporting Exposed if you're enjoying the content. Look, entry level, $2.50 a week for the first tier level. And that gets you commercial-free episodes and bonus episodes as well. And you can level up from there and get all kinds of other benefits. patreon.com/exposed podcast files. Also, check out Cozy Earth, bamboo bedding, bamboo pajamas, bamboo towels, the softest fabric in the world, I'm telling you, and the coolest fabric in the world. And as a listener of Exposed, you use the word exposed at checkout and you get 30% off anything you buy. Anything you buy. A great deal there. CozyEarth.com. Use Exposed at checkout. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.